Hello, Blazers. Welcome to episode 60 of UAB Green and Told. Original air date Monday, December 6th, 2021. Through this podcast, we are able to share stories from members of the UAB community. You can listen into previous episodes at alumni.uab.edu/greenandtold, on Spotify, and with the Apple Podcast app. And be sure to leave a written review so we can reach more alumni. I'm Greg Berry, a UAB alum and Assistant Director in the UAB Office of Alumni Affairs. Today, we welcome Adam Aldrich to the Green and Told podcast. Adam has made a career out of computers and is currently president of Airship, a UAB Excellence in Business Top 25 award-winning company, one that he'll share was being created during one of life's finer moments.
I'm having my third kid. My wife and I are in the delivery room, and I've got create an LLC for dummies book.
The survivor of a tornado that tore through the Birmingham area as a kid, Adam will also explain why that twister has helped shape who he is today.
You have no control. There's no control. You feel like you're about to die. I mean, I just accepted at that point I was about to die. And when you go through something like that, it really changes you. When you don't die, you start looking at life a lot differently.
And he'll reveal why his journey as a UAB student was altered by family, kids, and entrepreneurship.
Just take it step by step, one class at a time, and eventually you're going to get to where you want to go. And it took a while. It took me like 7 years to get my degree, but I finally got it.
Over the last 4 years, Adam Aldrich has been part of each class of UAB Excellence in Business Top 25 winners. He has helped grow his business from a small startup to one that has gained tremendous respect. That success, however, was not given, but earned, especially when you consider where he was in high school.
I got bored a lot. I didn't do very well in school. I did enough to get by, A, B, C student, occasional D. I was not great at math or anything like that, but I really loved computers and technology. And when I was growing up, that just wasn't part of your education. We had typewriters in our first, typing class. And so, there wasn't an opportunity to really get into computers or technology or anything. And even growing up out in the Grove, you couldn't even get internet access in the early days. Like you couldn't even get dial-up and stuff like that. So I got bored a lot. I guess that's kind of what led me to not having the greatest grades, because the things I enjoyed weren't part of it. But I grew up doing a lot of traditional stuff that people in the country do. I rode motorcycles. I played baseball, played football. I wrestled in high school. So I love sports. I love competition and competing. It's just always been something I've really enjoyed doing. So I didn't get in too much trouble, just silly stuff like, boys stuff, skipping school every now and then because I didn't want to take a final or something like that. So just dumb stuff, but nothing bad. I was a good kid. I followed the rules, and I think most of the teachers liked me, other than they just thought I was lazy because I didn't do great in school. But no, I think that was kind of me, just a typical normal boy growing up out in the country.
So let's double back just a little bit, because you said you had an interest in computers. What led to that interest, and why computers?
I was always the kid who, when we get a new VCR or some new electronic device, I was always the person who set it up, because I was the only one who could figure out how to program the remote and stuff like that. So technology always was fascinating to me. And then my aunt got a computer when I was around, I think I was around 12 or so. She got a computer. And so I went over to her house to help set it up. And we had dial-up finally. And I got on AOL, which was Internet, America Online at the time. And that was kind of the thing that hooked me, because I figured out, there's people out there that I can talk to and I can learn from, and I can teach myself how to program. So that really was when I started figuring out, how do I make this thing do what I want it to do? And right around that time too, a couple of years later, the tornado, April 8th, 1998, tore down our school in Oak Grove, and they sent us to a vocational school, Gilmore Bell. And it kind of actually worked out good for me, because they brought in computers. So we replaced those typewriters with actual computers. And so it was nice. That was my sophomore, junior year. So I actually got to spend time in the computer lab. I just want to know how things work, and I want to get my hands dirty and figure it out. So just technology's kind of been in me for a long time like that.
You mentioned the tornado in 1998 that destroyed the high school. It was kind of a defining moment. It was a scary moment for you, but It was also a defining moment in your life. Explain.
So I was at my church, Rock Creek Church of God, and I was sitting next to a glass door. And it was like the only glass door in the whole church that didn't blow out. And if it had, it would have sucked all of us out. I mean, because we had our whole church lined up in the hallway. And I mean, it was so scary because when that thing hits, the sound and the shaking, and like when things are getting torn apart and ripped apart, and it starts to pick you up off the ground, and all you can do is just pray. Like you have no control. Like there's no control. Feel like you're about to die. I mean, I just accepted at that point I was about to die. And when you go through something like that, it really changes you. When you don't die, you start looking at life a lot differently. And I was 15 at the time, so I was still a kid, but I started looking at life saying, I think I'm here for a reason. I live for a reason, and I need to make what I do for the rest of my life matter. There needs to be purpose behind what I do. I don't need to just kind of go through life. And so that's when I really started trying to figure out what I was good at and what I could provide to the world and value. And that's really where I really started digging into programming and coding and computing and because at the time, nobody knew the internet was like a thing that was going to make you money, or you were kind of like made fun of for liking technology at the time for being a nerd or a geek. But it was something I saw as like the future was programming and computing and connecting people and creating great experiences. And so that's what I wanted to really dig into and figure out how to make more of that work. But yeah, it was a really defining moment because afterwards, like we went out and helped find people. I rescued a guy from our church who had been thrown. He was thrown up a hill like 200-300 yards. And we were walking around and I just heard a faint like help, and nobody else heard it. I was like, y'all hear that? And they were like, no, I don't hear anything. And finally we heard it. We ran up the hill, and a big oak tree had like fallen back and placed him underneath it and like fallen back on him. And the roots had like kind of protected him from a lot of the debris. But we were able to save his life, get him out of there, put him on a stretcher. And, it was a good growing up experience for a 15-year-old me to realize like, hey, life is more than just sports and motorcycles and goofing off. Like you need to start making your life have a purpose.
Here you are in your mid-30s. Did you think that tornado would define your life so much that it'd still be impacting you today?
That's a good question. At the time, no, I didn't. It's just one of those things you go through, and you're just trying to because a lot of people died. We lost a lot of people in our community. A lot of people I looked up to, and it was tough, losing people like that. And in our school, we lost people at our school. So you go through the grieving process, and that takes a while. And then you go through the change of you don't even have a school anymore. You've got to go to this vocational school where it's completely different. And they're trying to cram all these people in there, and the teachers and the principals are doing their best to try to figure out how to make this work. That took about a year, I would say, to kind of go through that change. But then we settled in and life kind of became normal. And then I think that's when things really started to kind of I started figuring out my path in life and figuring out, okay, here's where computing is going. And the school also, one of the great things they did is they let me leave early. So I got to co-op my junior and senior year. And I found a company in Hueytown that it did computing software for county government. And I begged them to just let me come work for them. I was like, hey, can you just please, I just want to get around other engineers so I can learn how to program. And they told me no, they wouldn't even let me work for free in the beginning. And the owner, he had owned a farm, and he said, if you'll come bush hog for me, I'll let you sit with the computer programmers and learn from them. And so I did that. I worked for free for a couple of years, but it was such a great experience for me because that's how I got to learn how to really take my program to the next level. And so the tornado, you don't see that at the time, right? You see this as a terrible thing. People have died. But without that, I might not have got that opportunity because the co-oping wasn't something they really did at Oak Grove. It was something they kind of had to do because the schools were so full and they were just looking for opportunities to give people a chance to get a better education. And I just told them hey, I really want to get into computing. I've got this job with this company that's going to teach me how to compute. Can I just leave at the day? And yeah, that'd be great. So that really helped my career take off. So it isn't something you look at the beginning, but when you start to see those dots connect, you do see that it down the line, looking back, it does all make sense now.
What was going through your mind as the next steps for your education? You said you weren't the greatest student, but obviously you have to get a background to make it anywhere.
Yeah. I really did start taking school more seriously my senior year. That's when I had, because I'm co-oping with this company, and I found out I'm actually really good at programming. It's something that just comes very natural to me. I mean, I have to work very hard at it, but it's one of those things where it either kind of clicks with people or it doesn't click with people. And it clicked with me because I'm sitting with engineers, and actually my senior year, they let me start building software to do deeds and mortgage. So you go to the courthouse to record a deed or mortgage. At the time, that was all done, like they just created what they would call a file, and they just created an index. But the documents themselves were not scanned. They were scanned on these like old microfilm scanners. And so scanning technology at the time was starting to become more popular. So what I did is they let me build a software package that would let you scan these and digitize them and put them online. And, here I am, a 15, 16-year-old kid doing something that's really important for, making documents available to people easier. And that really clicked with me, like, okay, you're good at this. You can do these things. You need to really focus on this. So what kind of education do you need to take it to the next step? And I started looking at, where do I want to go to school? And UAB was always top of my list. I just wanted to stay in Birmingham. I love Birmingham, and I've always respected UAB. It was always a school that was on my list. And I started looking at the different options. At the time, you really had two. It was computer science, or there was a business computing degree. But the business computing degree was more around basic, like SQL and Excel and Word and things like that, which I knew that stuff really well. But the computer science degree was like really difficult programming. And I was like, that's what I want to do. But it was scary for me because I looked at the math curriculum to go with that, and you had to go to Cal 3. And I was terrible at math. I mean, really, really bad at it. I think I made like a 11 on my math on the ACT or something. It was just awful. And so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna have to work really hard for this. So what I did is I jumped to Jeff State in the beginning because I'm working full time during the day when I graduate. I work full time during the day. So I get up at 6, I go to work, I work until 5 o'clock. And then Jeff State had a Hueytown campus that was right next to the office that I worked at. So I went to Jeff State, and I would start at 5:30, and then I would go to school till 10, come home, do some homework, do a little bit of studying, go to bed around like 1 or 2 o'clock in the night, get up at 6 and do that all over again. And so, but my whole reason for going to Jeff State was just more convenience. And it was, I was able to get a lot of the like core stuff out of the way. But it was great because the whole time I'm doing this, they had a STARS program that Alabama had implemented. And what that did, it was great because the universities like UAB and Alabama and Auburn all would work with the community colleges to say, these are the classes, if you take these, they will transfer over. And it was very clearly defined. But my eye was always, all right, go to Jeff State, get it for a couple of years, get your core out of the way, and then transfer to UAB and take all of your computer science at UAB, because that's where you're really going to get to learn a lot. And so I did that for 2-3 years, and then transferred over to UAB and started focusing on the computer science side and taking more of the heavy math and stuff. And it was ugly. Like basically, I felt you have to humble yourself, right? You have to say, I'm really bad at math, and I'm going to I started 097, which was very basic algebra. And I just had to humble myself and say, that's okay. This is what you got to do. You just got to go through it and just take it step by step, one class at a time. And eventually you're going to get to where you want to go. And it took a while. It took me like 7 years to get my degree, but I finally got it for UAB, and it was really nice.
You were at UAB in the early 2000s with the computer science program. Obviously, computers have come a long way since the inception, back 50s, 60s when they really started working on them. But computers have come a long way even since when you were in school and learning about them. What was it like as a part of the computer science program then?
You're right. It's very different. So I graduated 2008. Cell phones were a thing, but the iPhone had really just came out, right? So you have to think back to a time when most people just have a flip phone in their pocket. They don't have access to the internet on demand like we do. There aren't apps. So if you want to get online, you're on a computer with the big huge monitors and towers, you know, so you have to think back to the time of that. That's the way it was back then. And so what we were doing was, it was really cool because what UAB did was focused on a lot of the core fundamentals of programming. That's one thing I didn't understand at the time, because I learned a language when I was building software for the county government. But what I'd never done is like learned another language. And so UAB, when I got there, they taught Java, which was something I didn't know. And it forced me to have to learn it. And what I realized was like, oh, there's like these core concepts that exist through all of computer science. And that's what UAB focused on, was the core concepts. And I learned, it was really, we had a class on just really old languages, like from the, 50s and 60s. And so we went through, these are languages that we used to use back in the day to do punch cards and things like that. But going through that process was really enlightening to me, because it opened up your mind to, oh, there's more than just this one thing. And that served me well, because that's one thing you have to be embracing, is that technology is going to change a lot every single year. And we have to constantly be reevaluating new technologies at Airship to learn to take advantage of new things. I mean, at one point when we were building mobile technology, there was a technology called PhoneGap. This was probably like 2013, 2014 when we first started Airship, and we were building our apps in that, but it was just not a great technology. And my co-founder Trent and I, React Native had just came out, and he started looking into it, and we were like, this is a technology that's really going to make mobile development so much easier. We need to learn it. And so we just flipped out. I told all our engineers, we're no longer doing PhoneGap, we're doing React Native. You got to learn it. And so, knowing that you can constantly, the core, and you can learn how to learn new technologies is just, it really is part of being an technologist that you have to embrace.
You mentioned that it took you a couple minutes to graduate from UAB. It took you a few years. During this whole process, you're still working for the county. You get married, and you're still going to school. So what was your collegiate experience like? Because it was different than the traditional student.
It was way different. And I didn't realize that at the time, that the path I was taking was so different than most people. But my wife and I, we started dating when we were 15. So we were high school sweethearts. And I mean, she's such a huge supporter. I mean, there's no way I could do any of this without her. And when we got married, and when she was we both were like 22, 23, we got pregnant with our son. She said, I want to stay at home with our son. Like, that's what I want to do. I want to quit work. She'd worked for Regions at the time. Compass. And she said, I want to quit and stay at home with him. I was like, okay, we'll figure out how to make that work. And so, I'm working full time during the day, going to school full time at night. And I've got a son on the way. And, I'm going to be the sole income provider. But it was tough, but it was really good for us to go through, because it forces you to really figure out what you're capable of. I mean, because I already was working what I felt like was a lot, but it's like, all right, here's another level that you got to figure out how to do. And I did take a year off from school. And this is, I remember this, everybody was like, you will never go back. If you take off, you will never go back. Don't take off. And I said, look, I've got to, because I've got to support my family. And I can't go do both of these at the same time. And I did. And it was hard. It was hard to say, you've had a year off, you've had a little bit of rest, and kind of like reset the clock. But I was like, I'm going to do it. And I went back and slowly started working my way through. And so what I did was, I didn't go full time at night anymore. I went part time. And I only could take classes, at night. And one of the things too, is you start to chip away at those classes that you need. And in the computer science division, we weren't big. I mean, I think we had like maybe I may be wrong this, but it was like 11 people graduate in our computer science class or something like that. So we're talking about small computer science at the time. UAB has grown tremendously in computer science since then, but at the time it was a small classes. So they would teach one class that I needed every other semester. So it got to the point where I was having to take a class. I could only take one class every other semester to kind of like get to where my graduation point was. But it was so nice, because UAB didn't change the experience for people that went at night. I felt like I got the same experience as other people. You still got the same professors. They still treated you the same. You still felt like I got the same level of education. It was still really hard and difficult to work through.
So you take the co-op experience that went into a job with the county. You take what you learned at UAB, and then what? What'd you do?
I loved the place I was at, but I had been there a long time, the county government place, and I really needed to take my skills to the next level. And it just wasn't getting the opportunity to do that there. And so I started looking for, just what other jobs are out there, because at the time, and still this way, a lot of places, like, you have to have a computer science degree to get a job. So I'm like, I've got the experience, I've got the degree, where can I go? So I started looking at other opportunities, and I found a place called Daxco. I got to be around other people that were like myself. They were very driven. They wanted to build great software. They love creating a great culture of excellence and things like that just kind of took me to the next level.
And it was during the time at Daxco that you met your future business partner, and you started to lay the foundation to what is now Airship. Talk a little bit about the process of meeting Trent, what went into, the collaboration of starting this company off the ground.
The great thing about Trent was he's the more visionary, design focused, experienced person. Like, he's very good at, like, taking a concept and creating a design for it and making that experience amazing. Like, that's sort of he is, and I'm more the back end. I can create the architecture that will make that thing work really well and really smoothly and scale to new levels. And so our two personalities were really great because we kind of complemented each other really well. We were able to focus on what we wanted to do. And so we were trying to figure out, what do we want to do? Like, what are some ideas that we've got to build a product? And I had worked in the county government space, and I knew that space really well. Well, at the time, car tag renewals in Jefferson County were a nightmare. People were spending 5 hours standing in line. People were, like, literally passing out in line, and having to go to the hospital. And we were like, we got to do something about this. What's going on? And so what had happened was they had an insurance law change where you had to show proof of insurance to renew your car tag. Well, the only way you could do that was go to the courthouse. And so that's what it created. It took where you couldn't renew online really anymore for certain things. You had to go to the courthouse. And so we came up with the idea, what if you could take a picture of your insurance card through a mobile app, because mobile apps are now a thing, and we could upload it to the courthouse. They could look at it, verify it. If there was an issue, then we could go back and forth through the app and the portal for the clerk. They could go through and verify it through this process. And so we built an app that did it. And it took about 4 to 6 months or something like that. And I had some contacts from some previous government stuff, and I showed it to them. Trent and I drove up there, showed it to them, and they were like, I love it, let's do it. And so that kicked off. We called it County Apps, and it was really fun. So, sales, marketing, accounting, taxes, all the things it takes to run a business. We didn't know any of that stuff. We didn't even know what we were doing. So we didn't even know how to create a company. We didn't have any money either. So this is 2013 when we decided to create the company. I'm having my third kid. My wife and I are in the delivery room, and I've got a create an LLC for dummies book that I'm reading, and it's got like a little form in there that you can fill out, like a pre-filled LLC agreement. And so I'm filling this thing out. And, I filed the paperwork the next day after we had our third daughter, Kara. We really didn't know what we were doing, but hey, it worked, and we figured it out and kind of figured out how to make it work. But we eventually got about 3 to 4 customers, because it was just a side gig for us. Like, this was not distracting us from our work at Daxco. We were very respectful to Daxco because they were so good to us. This was just something we were doing on nights and weekends. But we did it started to grow so fast that it was starting to take up that, we could see that coming down the pipe. We've got to do something here. We can't serve 2 masters in this instance here. So we started looking at how do we leave? How do we leave Daxco, and how do we take this company to the next level? And Trent and I don't come from wealthy families. We didn't want to take funding either, because we really wanted to kind of like go through that experience of bootstrapping it and figuring out how to grow it organically. And so we decided to do some consulting work, because we felt like, we can take our nights and weekends, do consulting work. Let's turn that into a full-time thing. And I remember too, at the time, my wife, Dixie, and I sat down and we went through, and I was like, I'm about to leave what is a fantastic job with a great group of people. Do we really want to do this, to take on something that we have no clue if this is going to work? Because like 9 out of 10 startups fail, Like there's a 90% chance we're going to fail at this. And she was so good. She was like, it's fine. We'll figure it out, and we prayed about it, and we really just felt like it was the right decision. And Trent and I put together a spreadsheet, and it had, what's the minimum number that you need to sort of survive, right? And like, what can you get by? You only need one car. What does it take to make your mortgage payment? Can you survive on spaghetti and ramen noodles type thing? So we had like a base minimum of like, this is how much per hour you need in a 40-hour work week to like get by. And it was really good because it created sort of like, okay, we could survive. I mean, we didn't grow up wealthy, and we were great. Like we were both had super, nice childhoods, and I was like, it's not a big deal. And so it gave us some confidence that we could do it, and we did. We kind of set our first hourly rate like double what the minimum was, and it wasn't much at the time. But we started doing that, and then we're building County Apps on the side. So County Apps is our product, and we're really just taking all the money we make from the consulting gig and funneling it into County Apps. And eventually it started to realize like we actually like the consulting side more than we like the product side. And so we started looking to sell the company, County Apps, and do more of, we weren't Airship at the time, but we really love the consulting stuff. Like we were working with Church of the Highlands at the time, was one of our biggest customers. They're still one of our biggest customers today. And like we were getting to make software that impacted hundreds of thousands of people, every week. And it was really rewarding to know like I can build this, and someone can have a request and I can do it, and it can have an impact on someone's life immediately. And I don't have to go through all these hoops to try to get it sold into a county and all that stuff. So we sold that company. This is around 2016, September. And we really started focusing on Airship at the time. So we did rebrand. So just to give you a timeline, we spent about 3 years working full-time days, doing consulting work, and nights and weekends doing the County App stuff. So from 2013 to 2016. And then 2016, we really doubled down and focused on Airship. We rebranded into Airship, and we started focusing on the consulting side and brought in some new people to help us with sales and product management and things like that.
You talk about consulting, you talk about products, you talk about Airship. What exactly is Airship? What do you do?
So we do custom software. In a nutshell, we build custom applications. So if someone's got a problem they need help with, they want to build a technology solution, they've got an idea, they come to us and we help them design it. But we do more than just that, because there's lots of companies that do that. Our mission is that we exist to create transformational change through remarkable experiences. And so when I say that, I really mean that we focus on the experiences and the things that we build. We're very picky about the customers we take on. We don't take on just anyone. The idea has to be exciting, and it has to have some transformational change on top of it, because the types of people we hire, they don't want to just write code. They want to build things that make a difference in the world. And that's why we look for customers that kind of focus on those things. Again, like I talked about with Church of the Highlands, like it really meant something to know that if I build this thing, like hundreds of thousands of people are going to use it and they're going to appreciate it. It's just very exciting when you do those kinds of things. So we've worked with, and we've done work with churches, and we do construction with construction companies. We've done logistics. Like we kind of go. We don't really have a market that I would say that we specifically focus in. We have 2 or 3 that we're really good at, but as long as it's got something that's a transformational change on top of it, and they want a good experience, that's where we bring them in.
So you're in the business of growing other people's businesses, but you've grown your business 4 straight years, UAB Excellence in Business Top 25 Awards, which is remarkable. And that's based off of revenue growth. Where is the company at today? Because it's no longer the 4 individuals working, in Innovation Depot and moving over to a small room in Pepper Place.
Yeah, it's been such a blessing. I mean, when I look back, 2013 is not that long ago, but we have changed so much. I have changed so much as an entrepreneur, and I've learned so much. The people we've hired are just like, if I could go back to 2013 and say, your company's going to look like this as it exists today, and you're going to have all these fantastic crew members that I would I would have been like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I will take that all day long. The journey to get there has not been easy. I think we're at 41 crew members right now. We've got around like 5 or 6 engineering positions open. So we're constantly growing. We want to be around 51 people is our goal at the end of the year based on our revenue goals.
That's Adam Aldrich. Adam earned his Bachelor of Science degree in Computer and Information Science from the UAB College of Arts and Sciences in 2006. Today, he serves as president and co-founder of Airship here in Birmingham. And as a longtime student, Adam has a good idea of what it means to be a Blazer.
I always felt like growth and opportunity were just built into UAB's culture as part of something that they really encouraged. And like, again, my class was like 11 people, but we never felt like we were underdogs and that we were getting a worse experience. It always felt like we've got something special to offer and we're going to continue growing that. And I don't know how big the computer science department is now, but I know it's one of the fastest growing departments. And the UAB has grown tremendously since I left there. And I think that's because, and I know it's because of the people that they've hired that want to grow and they want to get better and they want opportunity. It's not a school where you go to just kind of get by. You go there because you want to learn a lot. And again, I think it's a lot of the working, you do get people who work and go to school there more than most places because it's not isolated out in some, different area. It's part of Birmingham, which is a working city. And I think that they do a really good job embracing that. But yeah, I feel like I always felt like that great energy of like, everybody here who leaves UAB is going to matter. Like the work they're going to do is going to mean something one day.
Be sure to listen into previous episodes of UAB Green and Told. You can find all of them at alumni.uab.edu/Green and Told. You can also listen in on Spotify and the Apple Podcast app. Have a story to share? Email me at greenandtold@uab.edu. Finally, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search UAB Alumni. Thanks for listening, and until next time, go Blazers.